The unexpected visitors. The quantum drill hummed steadily as it bored through the asteroid's metallic core, extracting rare Earth elements vital for Earth's bustling colonies. Sarah Chen, chief mining engineer aboard the HMS Prospector, monitored the efficiency readings with practiced ease. After 15 years in deep space mining operations, she had developed an almost sixth sense for when things were about to go wrong. That sense was tingling now. "Control, we're picking up some unusual gravitational distortions," her second-in-command, Marcus Rodriguez, reported from his station. "They're not matching any known mining phenomena." Sarah frowned at the readings. The quantum drill was operating at peak efficiency, but something was definitely off. The gravitational waves weren't coming from their mining operation. They were coming from deep space. "Shut it down," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. Full sensor sweep of the area. The drill's hum faded to silence, leaving only the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. The Prospector was a mining vessel, but like all human ships since the quantum age began, it carried advanced sensors that could detect disturbances in space-time itself. Multiple objects emerging from, well, I'm not sure what to call it, Marcus said, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. "It's like they're using some kind of primitive fold space technology. The gravitational efficiency is terrible." Before Sarah could respond, the ship's AI, spoke up, detecting 2,317 vessels emerging from subspace. Configuration unknown. Their method of faster-than-light travel appears to be based on creating artificial wormholes, but the energy wastage is remarkable. The space around them lit up as ships began appearing. They were massive. The smallest was easily 5 times the size of the Prospector. Their hulls were covered in what appeared to be decorative armor, gleaming with an iridescent sheen that would have been impressive if Sarah hadn't immediately recognized the material as basic photonic crystal plating, something humans had moved beyond a century ago. "They're hailing us," Marcus reported. "Broadcasting on, is this right? Radio frequencies." Sarah couldn't help but smile. Radio waves for space communication. These aliens, whoever they were either very traditional or very behind the times. "Put them through, but run it through the quantum translator first." The holographic display shifted, showing a tall reptilian being dressed in what appeared to be ceremonial military garb. Its scales were a deep purple, and numerous medals covered its chest. "Insignificant mining vessel," the alien began, its translated voice carrying what the AI tagged as confidence bordering on arrogance. "You have the honor of being the first to witness the arrival of the Galactic Hegemony's 47th Conquest Fleet. I am Supreme Commander Xithtal. Your species will now submit to our authority or face immediate annihilation." Sarah glanced at Marcus, who was covering his mouth to suppress a laugh. She understood why. The sensor readings on the alien ships were coming in, and they were interesting. "Supreme Commander," Sarah replied, keeping her voice professionally neutral. "I am Chief Engineer Chen of the HMS Prospector. While we appreciate the theatrical entrance, I feel I should point out a few things before you continue with your conquest speech." The alien scales shifted color slightly, showing what the AI translated as confusion. "You dare to interrupt?" "Yes, I dare," Sarah said, allowing herself a small smile. "First, our insignificant mining vessel has detected that your entire fleet is using fusion drives. That's very traditional. We haven't used those for personal vehicles, let alone spaceships, in over a century. Second, your shield technology appears to be based on electromagnetic deflection, which is problematic because—" "Enough," Xithtal roared. "We will demonstrate our power. Witness the might of our main weapon." One of the massive ships turned its bow toward a nearby asteroid, significantly larger than the one they had been mining. A port opened in its hull, and after several seconds of visible power buildup, a beam of concentrated plasma shot forth. Sarah and her crew watched in silence as the beam took nearly 30 seconds to reach its target. When it hit, The asteroid's surface melted slightly. "Impressive," Sarah said diplomatically, though she could hear muffled laughter from her crew. "Would you like to see what our mining equipment can do?" Without waiting for a response, she nodded to Marcus. The quantum drill, designed to extract specific elements from asteroid cores without damaging surrounding structures, powered up. In less than a second, it created a perfect cylindrical hole through the entire asteroid, its quantum fields precisely extracting valuable materials while leaving the rest intact. The alien commander's scales had shifted to a pale lavender color that the AI tagged as extreme distress. That's impossible," Sithtul stammered. "No mining equipment cold." "Oh, that was just our basic extraction tool," Sarah said. "Would you like to see how we actually move around in space? Area, if you would." The prospector's quantum drive engaged. To the alien fleet, it would appear as if the human ship simply vanished, reappearing instantly at different points around their formation. Above, below, behind, and finally back at its original position. The entire demonstration took less than 3 seconds. The alien commander's image flickered as their communication system struggled to keep up with the prospector's movements. When it stabilized, Sithtul's scales had turned an almost white color. "Perhaps," Sarah suggested gently, "we should have a different kind of conversation. One about cultural exchange and peaceful cooperation. I'd be happy to explain how our quantum technology works. Though I should warn you, it might challenge some of your basic assumptions about physics." There was a long pause before Sithtul responded, their voice notably less commanding. I will need to consult with the Hegemony Council." "Of course," Sarah said. "Take all the time you need. Though you might want to update your communication systems first. Radio waves are a bit slow for interstellar diplomacy." After the communication ended, Sarah looked at her crew, all of whom were now freely laughing. "Well," she said, "I guess we should contact Earth Command. Anyone want to bet on how long it takes them to believe this report?" Araya's voice carried what could only be described as amusement. "Based on previous first contact protocols and the peculiarities of this situation, I estimate a 73.4% chance they'll think we're joking for at least the first hour." As Sarah began composing her report, she watched the alien fleet through the view screen. Their massive ships hung in space like elegant but obsolete museum pieces, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had learned that lesson long ago, which was perhaps why they could afford to laugh now. The quantum drill resumed its work, its efficient hum a sharp contrast to the distant fusion drives of the alien fleet. Sarah had a feeling that the next few weeks were going to be very interesting indeed. After all, teaching advanced physics to a species that still used radio waves was going to be quite the challenge. But then again, humans had always loved a good challenge. Technical difficulties. Dr. Maya Patel had never expected to become Earth's leading expert in obsolete technology, but life had a way of throwing curveballs. Standing in the massive docking bay of the Hegemony flagship, Eternal Glory, she found herself trying to explain quantum mechanics to aliens who had just mastered nuclear fusion. "The problem isn't just your propulsion systems," she explained to senior engineer Zach Still, whose scales had turned a fascinating shade of green that her translator identified as intellectual frustration. "Your entire approach to faster-than-light travel is fundamentally, well, inefficient." The alien engineer's assistant, a younger female named Vixlia, leaned forward with undisguised fascination. "But our wormhole generators are based on principles that took our greatest minds centuries to develop." Maya nodded diplomatically, though her quantum tablet had already identified 17 critical flaws in the massive wormhole generator they were examining. The device took up nearly a quarter of the flagship's interior space and required enough power to run a small human colony for a year, all to create a temporary wormhole that could barely transport a ship a few light years. "Your scientists did remarkable work with the understanding they had," Maya said carefully. "But there's a reason we moved away from artificial wormholes 3 centuries ago. The energy requirements are prohibitive, and the spatial distortions are Messy. Her tablet pinged, displaying a simulation of the quantum decay occurring around the generator. Maya winced. The device wasn't just inefficient. It was actually damaging the fabric of space-time with each use. Not enough to cause immediate problems, but over centuries of operation. Perhaps a demonstration would help, she suggested, pulling out what looked like a simple crystal from her pocket. This is a basic quantum resonance crystal. We give them to children as educational toys. The alien engineers crowded around, their scales shifting through various colors of curiosity and skepticism. Maya held the crystal up to the massive wormhole generator, and its surface immediately lit up with complex patterns of light. Your generator is trying to force space to bend, she explained, watching the pattern swirl. But space doesn't like to be forced. It's like, imagine trying to cut through a wall with a plasma torch when there's already a door right next to you. Then how do your ships move so quickly? Vixley asked, her scales now a bright color that the translator tagged as extreme excitement. Maya smiled. We don't bend space. We dance with it. She activated the crystal, and suddenly the patterns it displayed extended outward, creating a holographic model of quantum fields. Every point in space is connected to every other point. We simply step through the connections that are already there. The younger engineer's scales were practically glowing now, but Zaxtil's had darkened to a deep blue of concern. Such concepts go against everything our science has established over millennia. That's what makes science beautiful, Maya replied. It grows, it changes, She was interrupted by a loud alarm from her tablet. Oh dear. What is it? Both aliens asked simultaneously. Your wormhole generator is building up to its next activation sequence, but there's a quantum resonance cascade forming in the lower matrices. If you activate it now, she did some quick calculations. The resulting space-time distortion would probably turn this entire sector of space into a very interesting physics problem. Zaxtil's scales went pale, but we can't shut it down mid-sequence. The safety protocols. Maya was already moving, her fingers dancing across her tablet. AI. She called to her AI assistant. I need a containment field around this entire section of the ship. Full quantum isolation. Field established. The AI responded instantly. Though I should note that containing a wormhole collapse of this magnitude wasn't in my original programming parameters. This should be quite educational. Not the time for humor, AI. Maya muttered, though she couldn't help but smile. The AI had picked up human sarcasm all too well. She pulled out 3 more crystals from her bag, arranging them around the generator in a precise pattern. To the alien engineers, it must have looked absurd. Their massive, city-sized machine being treated like a malfunctioning appliance by a human with what appeared to be children's toys. When I give the signal, Maya instructed, I need you to completely cut power to the generator. Can you do that? Zaxtil hesitated. The shutdown sequence takes 30 minutes to. No time, Maya interrupted. It needs to be immediate. Either we cut power now and deal with the damage, or this entire ship becomes a case study in quantum physics gone wrong. The senior engineer's scales shifted rapidly through several colors before settling on a deep purple of resignation. Do it. Maya activated the crystals. They pulsed with light, creating a complex web of quantum fields that contained and redirected the collapsing wormhole energy. At her signal, Zaxtil slammed down the emergency shutdown control. For a moment, everything went silent. Then there was a soft pop, like a bubble bursting, and the massive generator went dark. What just happened? Vixley asked, her scales showing a mix of fear and awe. Maya checked her readings. We just prevented a catastrophic wormhole collapse by channeling the energy through a basic quantum containment field. Something like this happened on Earth about 400 years ago. It's actually what led to the development of our current quantum drive technology. She paused, looking at the now silent generator. Though our accident was much smaller and much better contained. Zaxtil was staring at the small crystals, still pulsing softly with contained energy. Those are children's toys. Educational tools, Maya corrected. Though I may have modified these a bit, we do try to avoid giving children devices that can contain wormhole collapses. A new alarm sounded. This one from the ship itself. Supreme Commander Sithtal requests your immediate presence in the command center, a voice announced. Maya gathered her crystals, carefully storing the ones still containing the collapsed wormhole energy. Those would make for an interesting research project back on Earth. As she followed the aliens through the massive ship's corridors, she couldn't help but notice how many of the younger crew members were watching her with unmistakable fascination. Professor, Vixley said quietly as they walked, her scales showing a color Maya's translator couldn't quite interpret. Would it be possible for me to learn more about quantum physics? Maya smiled. Maybe this was how it started, not with grand diplomatic gestures or military demonstrations, but with simple curiosity and a willingness to learn. Of course, she replied, though we might want to start with the basics. Tell me, what do you know about quantum entanglement? Behind them, the massive wormhole generator stood silent, a monument to old technology about to be superseded by new understanding. Change, Maya knew, was never easy, but it was always interesting. Pride and prejudice in space. Admiral James Henderson of the Earth Defense Fleet fought to maintain his diplomatic expression as the holographic display showed yet another demonstration of hegemony's superior firepower. The alien dreadnought had just spent 5 minutes charging its main weapon to vaporize an asteroid that one of Earth's civilian mining ships could have quantum tunneled through in seconds. Most impressive, he lied, catching the eye of Dr. Maya Patil, who was busy pretending to take notes on her quantum tablet. They both knew she was actually playing quantum chess against her eye to stay awake. Supreme Commander Sithtal's scales rippled with pride, completely missing the human's carefully controlled expressions. You see, the Eternal Glory's main cannon can completely destroy any target within a light minute's range. A whole light minute. Admiral Henderson murmured, while his tactical AI quietly informed him that the energy output was roughly equivalent to what Earth's weather control satellites use to prevent minor rainstorms. The meeting chamber aboard the Hegemony flagship was a study in contrasts. The aliens had clearly designed it to intimidate, with towering ceilings, ornate decorations, and what they probably thought were impressive holographic displays showing their fleet movements. But to human eyes, it all seemed charmingly antiquated, like a museum display of early space exploration. Perhaps, Henderson suggested carefully, we could move on to discussing cultural exchange. Our scientists have prepared some basic educational materials about quantum physics that might. You doubt our military capabilities. Sithtal interrupted, scales flushing a deep crimson. We have conquered 12 star systems, our fleet numbers in the thousands, and we're very impressed by that. Henderson said soothingly, though his AI helpfully pointed out that 12 star systems was roughly equivalent to the territory covered by Earth's outer mining operations. But we're more interested in peaceful cooperation than military demonstrations. A younger alien officer, whom Henderson recognized as Vixley from Maya's reports, stepped forward. Supreme Commander, if I may, the humans' quantum technology offers unprecedented opportunities for advancement. Their educational systems alone could revolutionize our silence. Sithtal's tail lashed in agitation. You have been spending too much time with their scientists, Lieutenant. You forget your place. Maya spoke up, her voice calm but firm. Commander Sithtal, your lieutenant shows remarkable insight. Just yesterday, she grasped concepts of quantum entanglement that took Earth scientists decades to. Enough. Sithtal's scales were now pulsing between crimson and black. If you doubt our supremacy, then perhaps a demonstration is in order. A competition between our finest chips and your best vessel. Henderson exchanged glances with Maya. They had both known it would come to this. Pride was universal. It seemed, even across species. "What kind of competition did you have in mind?" Henderson asked, though he already knew the answer. "3 trials," Shithtul declared. "Speed, combat, and navigation. Our 10 best ships against your finest vessel. When we win, you will acknowledge the hegemony's superiority and submit to our authority." Henderson pretended to consider this, though his eye was already calculating the safest way to compete without completely humiliating their potential allies. "And if we win?" "You won't," Shithtul said confidently. "But if by some impossible chance you did, we would. Consider accepting your offers of technological assistance." As the details were being arranged, Henderson noticed several younger alien officers watching the proceedings with poorly concealed excitement. They weren't the only ones. Throughout the massive ship, screens were displaying data about human quantum technology that had supposedly been classified. Maya's tablet pinged softly. She glanced at it and smiled. "It seems," she whispered to Henderson, "that someone has been sharing our educational materials through the hegemony's information networks. They're going viral." "Lieutenant Vixley," Henderson guessed, along with about 300 other young officers and scientists. Maya showed him her tablet's display. They'd formed study groups. "They're calling themselves Quantum Pioneers." Henderson hid his smile as Shithtul continued outlining the competition rules. The Supreme Commander was so focused on proving military superiority that he hadn't noticed the real revolution happening under his nose. A revolution of ideas. "We accept your challenge," Henderson announced when Shithtul finally finished speaking. "Though I suggest we add one more condition to the competition." The alien commander's scales shifted to a suspicious yellow. "What condition?" "Win or lose, we broadcast the entire event across your empire. Let everyone see exactly what happens." Shithtul's scales briefly flashed a color that the translator labeled as alarm, but he was trapped by his own rhetoric. "Agreed. Let the galaxy witness our triumph." As they left the chamber, Maya fell into step beside Henderson. "You know we could win this with a civilian courier ship, right? Even our slowest vessels are centuries ahead of their technology." "That's not the point," Henderson replied quietly. "This isn't about winning or losing. It's about helping them save face while they adapt to a new reality." He nodded toward a group of young alien officers huddled around a datapad, clearly studying quantum mechanics. "Change is already happening. They just need time to accept it. And if they don't," Henderson smiled, "then we'll give them the most educational defeat in galactic history." Throughout the Hegemony flagship, quantum physics tutorials continued to spread from screen to screen, planting seeds of revolution in minds young and old. Sometimes, Henderson reflected, the most powerful weapons weren't the ones that destroyed asteroids, but the ones that opened minds. He just hoped Shithtul and the old guard would survive having their minds opened quite so dramatically. After all, it wasn't every day you learned that children's toys from another civilization could outperform your most advanced military technology. But then again, that was probably a lesson worth learning. The Great Space Race. The EDF Swift Messenger was, by human standards, an unremarkable ship. A standard-issue diplomatic vessel, it was primarily used for carrying messages and small cargo between Earth's colonies. Captain Laura Jung had spent the last 3 years piloting it on routine missions, never expecting to represent humanity in a galactic competition. "Are you sure we shouldn't use a military vessel?" she asked Admiral Henderson over the quantum comm. "The Hegemony is fielding their 10 most powerful warships." Henderson's holographic image shook his head. "The Swift Messenger will do fine. Besides, using a military ship might send the wrong message. We're here to make friends, not enemies." Laura glanced at her tactical display, where 10 massive Hegemony battleships were taking position. Each one dwarfed her vessel, their ornate hulls gleaming with what their engineers probably thought was advanced technology. Her ship's AI, NeoVA, had already analyzed their capabilities and seemed almost embarrassed to report the results. "The first trial is about to begin," NeoVA announced. The Hegemony ships will use their wormhole generators to travel to the designated point near Saturn's orbit and return. They estimate the journey will take approximately 43 minutes each way. Laura couldn't help but smile. And how long would it take us at full speed? Approximately 0.3 seconds. However, I suggest we operate at no more than 0.1% of our maximum quantum drive capacity. Any faster might cause unnecessary distress to our competitors. The starting signal came, a radio wave broadcast that took several seconds to reach them. The Hegemony ships activated their wormhole generators, the space around them distorting as artificial tunnels through space-time began to form. At least the view was pretty, Laura commented, watching the swirling energies. Her sensors indicated that each ship was using enough power to run a small city for a year, just to create a temporary shortcut through space. Captain, NanoVA interrupted, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from several of the Hegemony ships. It appears they're attempting to modify their wormhole generators using. Are those based on our educational materials? Laura zoomed in on one of the battleships. Sure enough, its energy signature showed signs of attempted quantum field manipulation. They're trying to replicate our technology. In the middle of a race. Fascinating, NanoVA replied. The modifications are crude but show remarkable intuition. Lieutenant Vixley's study groups have been busy. Should we disqualify them for unauthorized modifications? No, Laura decided. Let's see what they can do. The wormhole generators activated. 9 of the ships disappeared into their artificial tunnels as planned. The 10th, however, achieved something entirely unexpected. Its modified generator created a quantum resonance cascade that, for a brief moment, actually touched the quantum fields that human ships used for FTL travel. The result was spectacular. Instead of following its planned course, the ship vanished in a flash of light and reappeared near Jupiter, completely the wrong direction, but an impressive achievement nonetheless. Did they just accidentally quantum tunnel? Laura asked, amazed. In a manner of speaking, NanoVA confirmed. Though the method was incredibly dangerous and inefficient, they're lucky they didn't materialize inside Jupiter. Still, it's remarkable progress for less than a week of studying quantum physics. The competition continued. When it was the Swift Messenger's turn, Laura deliberately used the slowest possible quantum drive settings, taking a full 10 seconds to make the journey to Saturn and back. Even at this drastically reduced speed, they completed the course hours before the first Hegemony ship returned. The second trial, combat effectiveness, was even more delicate. The Hegemony ships demonstrated their most powerful weapons, spending several minutes charging up massive energy beams that, according to NanoVA's calculations, wouldn't even have registered on the Swift Messenger's standard civilian shields. When it was their turn, Laura had to get creative. We'll demonstrate our defensive capabilities first, she announced on an open channel. Instead of raising shields, she positioned her ship directly in the line of fire of all 10 Hegemony vessels. You may fire when ready. The alien ships launched their most powerful assault. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and what appeared to be some form of nuclear warheads all converged on the Swift Messenger. Laura didn't even need to activate the main shields. The ship's automated point defense systems, designed to protect against micrometeors during quantum tunneling, absorbed or deflected everything without requiring any power increase. Now for our offensive demonstration, Laura continued, trying to keep the amusement out of her voice. She targeted a small asteroid and activated the ship's mining laser, a standard tool for clearing debris from shipping lanes. The beam, barely visible to the naked eye, touched the asteroid. A moment later, the massive rock simply ceased to exist, converted entirely into quantum energy, and safely dispersed into subspace. The silence on the command channel was deafening. That, Laura said carefully, was our maintenance laser. We use it for cleaning the hull. More silence. The third trial, navigation through an asteroid field, was canceled by mutual agreement. The Hegemony commanders had seen enough. As they regrouped near Mars' orbit, Laura noticed something interesting on her sensors. The Hegemony ship that had accidentally quantum tunneled was receiving a steady stream of visitors from other vessels. Her quantum sensors detected increasing amounts of makeshift quantum field manipulation equipment being assembled throughout the alien fleet. "NOVA," she asked, "are you still monitoring their information networks?" "Yes, Captain. The quantum physics study groups have grown exponentially. They're now using our race footage to analyze quantum field interactions. Several young officers have already submitted papers proposing significant modifications to their propulsion systems. They're calling it the quantum revolution." Laura smiled. The real victory hadn't been in the competition at all. It had been in showing them what was possible. "Captain," NOVA added, "Supreme Commander Xithtal is hailing us. His scales are showing colors that the translator describes as revolutionary acceptance with hints of existential crisis." "Well," Laura said, straightening her uniform, "let's go help them take their first steps into a quantum future." Behind her ship, the modified Hegemony vessel attempted another quantum tunnel, this time managing to appear only a few thousand kilometers from its intended destination. Progress, Laura reflected, sometimes came in unexpected ways. And sometimes it came at 0.1% of its potential speed, just to avoid causing too much cultural shock. A new understanding. The Grand Hall of the Eternal Glory had been transformed. Where once it displayed holograms of military victories and conquered worlds, now it showed quantum field equations and experimental results. Young Hegemony officers moved excitedly between display stations, their scales shifting through colors of discovery and wonder as they shared their findings. Supreme Commander Xithtal, his scales a more subdued shade than usual, stood with Admiral Henderson watching the proceedings. 3 weeks, Xithtal said quietly. 3 weeks since your demonstration, and already they've rebuilt half our wormhole generators into, what did you call them? Quantum field manipulators, Henderson supplied. Though I should note that Dr. Patil is a bit concerned about some of their more creative modifications. Apparently, Lieutenant Vixley's team found a way to generate quantum tunnels using repurposed food synthesizers. Is that dangerous? Only to the food synthesizers, and possibly to anyone expecting their dinner to arrive in the same dimension they ordered it from. Across the hall, Maya Patel was surrounded by a group of eager students, their scales bright with excitement as she explained quantum entanglement using what appeared to be a child's toy and 3 pieces of fruit. The translator was having trouble keeping up with their rapid-fire questions, but their enthusiasm needed no interpretation. "We thought we were so advanced," Xithtal mused. 12 star systems under our control, the most powerful fleet in known space, technology that took millennia to develop. And then humans come along with their quantum physics and their mining ships that could outfight our best warships. "If it helps," Henderson offered, "Earth went through something similar a few centuries ago. We thought we were the height of technological achievement with our fusion drives and plasma weapons. Then we discovered quantum physics, and everything we thought we knew turned out to be just the beginning. And now you give such technology to children as toys." "Educational tools," Henderson corrected automatically, then caught the slight color shift in Xithtal's scales that the translator marked as amusement. "You know," Xithtal said, "when I first gave the order to approach your solar system, I thought we would be bringing civilization to a primitive world. Instead, we found ourselves becoming the students." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near one of the quantum field displays. Lieutenant Vixley's team had successfully created a stable quantum tunnel using modified ship components. The tunnel was small, barely large enough to pass a message through, but it was far more efficient than anything the Hegemony had achieved before. "Remarkable progress," Henderson commented. "Your people learn quickly." Too quickly, some would say. The High Council is concerned about the rate of change. There's talk of restricting access to quantum physics studies, of preserving our traditional technologies. And what do you think? Stithtel's scales shifted through several thoughtful colors before settling on a deep, determined blue. I think that the universe is larger and stranger than we imagined, and that clinging to old ways out of pride is a poor way to honor our civilization's achievements. A cheer went up from another group of students. They had successfully quantum-entangled 2 cups of a popular hegemony beverage, creating what they were calling instant drink sharing. The fact that this violated several fundamental laws of physics as the hegemony understood them seemed to only add to their excitement. Besides, Stithtel continued, I don't think we could stop them now if we tried. Did you know they've started a quantum physics entertainment channel? Their latest show features quantum cooking demonstrations. Quantum cooking. Apparently, you can use quantum fields to perfectly cook food by technically preparing it in all possible states simultaneously and then collapsing the quantum wave function to select the ideal result. Stithtel's scales flickered briefly. Though there was an incident last week where someone accidentally created a sandwich that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously. Was anyone hurt? No, but I'm told it was delicious in at least 7 of those dimensions. Maya approached them, looking slightly frazzled but happy. Supreme Commander, Admiral, you need to see this. The Advanced Study Group has developed a theoretical framework for quantum communication that could revolutionize how we share information across the galaxy. They're calling it the Quantum Internet. Isn't that basically what Earth has been using for the past century? Henderson whispered. Yes. Maya whispered back. But let them have this moment. They worked it out entirely on their own, using principles they learned from our educational materials. The implementation is different from ours, more elegant in some ways, actually. Stithtel watched as more of his crew gathered around the quantum displays, their scales bright with the colors of discovery and innovation. Perhaps, he said slowly, it's time we updated the hegemony's mission. Instead of conquering new worlds, we could focus on conquering new frontiers of knowledge. A quantum hegemony, Henderson suggested. Why not? We already have 12 star systems worth of young minds eager to learn. And clearly, we have much to learn. Another cheer erupted. Someone had successfully quantum tunneled a cup of coffee from one end of the hall to the other. The fact that the coffee arrived steaming hot in a cup that had previously contained cold juice suggested they still had some details to work out. But the principle was sound. You know, Henderson said, watching the celebration, Earth is always looking for new perspectives in quantum research. Your people's approach to quantum field manipulation is unconventional, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the best innovations come from looking at old problems in new ways. Are you suggesting an alliance? I'm suggesting a partnership. Earth has experience with quantum technology, but your people are already finding applications we never considered. Together, who knows what we might discover? Stithtel's scales shifted to a color the translator identified as hopeful determination. Perhaps we could start with fixing those food synthesizers. I'm told lunch today might arrive yesterday. As if on cue, there was a small quantum fluctuation near one of the food stations, and several meals from next week's menu appeared. The young officers treated it as just another successful experiment, proudly documenting the temporal displacement for their research. You know, Henderson said, watching the controlled chaos with amusement, when Earth first achieved quantum technology, we spent years carefully exploring its implications and establishing safety protocols. And how's that working out for you? Stithtel asked, gesturing to where Maya was now helping students quantum entangle different flavors of ice cream. Point taken. Sometimes the best way to learn is by doing, even if doing occasionally results in time-traveling desserts. Around them, the future of 2 civilizations was being written in quantum equations and experimental results, in shared discoveries and mutual understanding. It wasn't the conquest that hegemony had planned, but it was a revolution nonetheless, one driven not by weapons or warfare, but by curiosity, creativity, and the simple joy of learning something new. And if some of that learning involved quantum tunneling beverages or 12-dimensional sandwiches, well, That was just part of the process.